He's the longest-serving British prisoner in jail, never convicted of a crime. The US authorities are fighting to extradite him, claiming he ran extremist websites to support the global jihad.
They were the authoritative source #1 for jihad and mujahideen on the web. There was no one else that came close to them, not even close.
In days, he will find out his fate. In an exclusive interview from prison, Babar Ahmad tells Newsnight he's been denied justice by the British authorities.
I would urge the Director of Public Prosecutions to please put me on trial in this country and to find out what has gone wrong in my case. There has been a serious and unprecedented abuse of process that has gone on in my case.
For opponents of the extradition treaty with the US, this case highlights how unfair that treaty is.
A British citizen banged up in a high-security prison in his 8th year without trial, without charge. That is a Kafkaesque situation here happening on British soil. I think this case shames us all.
Babar Ahmad is the man the government said we couldn't meet. But the BBC challenged ministers in the High Court, and judges said it was in the public interest to hear his story from Long Lartin Prison in Worcestershire. He's been held on a special unit for half a dozen men. Each of them is accused of being among the most dangerous extremists in the world, and in a few days' time the European Court of Human Rights will deliver one of its most important judgments. Can men like Babar Ahmad be extradited to the United States? And when did they actually interview you?
I think the first interview was, I think it was the next day.
He was first arrested in 2003 in a Scotland Yard counter-terrorism operation. Officers were briefed that he was providing logistical and financial support to terrorists abroad through a website he'd allegedly set up. But days later he was released without charge and accused the police of assaulting him.
So you see that the air is very swollen and I had bleeding in that air. Just another shot. I was punched all over my body, I was kneed, handcuffs were placed on my wrists and they were slid until I was screaming in agony. They took me in the van and for the next 20 minutes there was more abuse, punches, more abuse of the handcuffs until my throat became dry from screaming.
Last year, 4 police officers were prosecuted for assault and acquitted. The trial came after the Met had admitted the assault happened and paid Babar Ahmad £60,000 in damages. Months after he was released, he was re-arrested by Scotland Yard's extradition unit. Now he was wanted by the Americans. At the heart of their case against him, a website they say he ran.
No matter where they're hiding, be it a cave, be it in the ground, be it in a safe house, or in the dark corners of cyberspace, law enforcement is there as well.
The website was called Azam.com. The Americans say Babar Ahmad used it to raise funds and provide material support to terrorism, first in Chechnya and then in Afghanistan. The site no longer exists, but its words live on.
Azam Publications has been set up to propagate the call for jihad amongst the Muslims who are sitting down. The purpose of Azam Publications is to, quote-unquote, incite the believers, and also, secondly, to raise some money for the brothers.
Evan Coleman is an internet extremism consultant based in New York. He's likely to give evidence if Babar Ahmad is put on trial. He came across Azam.com during his university research.
It didn't take long for me to find Azam Publications because it was the undisputed king of jihadi propaganda on the web.
He shows me graphic footage filmed in Chechnya.
This scene became known globally because of Azam Publications. You have here foreign fighters dragging the bodies of dead Russian soldiers out of this convoy they've just ambushed. This is something that nobody has ever seen before.
The leader of the group then machine guns to death a wounded Russian soldier.
This video is going to appeal to people who are so angry and are so furious and are so mobilized that seeing people being murdered on camera, even soldiers, is something that is inspiring.
I asked Babar Ahmad if he agreed with the Americans that this video had a sole purpose. They say that that material was used to recruit people for violent jihad, and that's why they want to put you on trial.
If there was anything on there that broke any law of the United Kingdom, or if there was anything in there that was wrong, I don't understand for the last 16 years where the police and Crown Prosecution Service have been.
But it's just a question of taste. It's just a question of taste and decency.
Well, something like that is a war crime. Obviously, I don't support killing of wanton killing of captured prisoners of war.
Did you run the Exam.com website, as the Americans allege?
The right place for me to respond to all of the allegations against me is in a court of law, and that is why I call upon the Crown Prosecution Service to put my heart at rest and to put everyone else's heart at rest, and please put me on trial in this country.
Babar Ahmad is a British citizen who grew up in a middle-class family in South London. As a teenager, he became sickened by events in Bosnia. He revealed to Newsnight that he joined a volunteer brigade of the Bosnian army and fought against the Serbs.
Here were defenceless people to whom horrific things were happening, and everyone was just sitting, and the international community were having conferences and negotiations and talks. No one was really actually doing anything to stop the slaughter of the innocents.
Bosnia was a turning point for some British Muslims. Al-Qaeda later tapped into the anger it caused, but Babar Ahmad denies he ever supported Osama bin Laden's jihad.
Well, if by jihad you mean defending yourself and your home and your family, then of course I support that, as every human being should have the right to defend their home and their family and themselves. But if by that one means attacking innocent people or blowing up nightclubs or violence for political means, then I don't support that.
After 9/11, everything changed for the man from Tooting in South London. MI5 installed a secret listening device in his home, and the Americans were slowly building their case. Investigators were alerted by a tip-off from a company tucked away in a quiet corner of Connecticut. Days after 9/11, staff at this web hosting company contacted the American authorities. They were concerned about allegedly extremist material found on one of the websites hosted here. That website was Exam.com. US investigators say the records here show the website was operated from Imperial College London, and that's where Babar Ahmad worked.
This is a serious allegation that has been made against me. I've never been questioned about this allegation. I've never been shown the evidence against me.
The alleged crimes were on computers in London, but the website was based in America. And it's this question over where he should be tried that's at the heart of Babar Ahmad's battle. The Crown Prosecution Service decided in 2004 he couldn't face trial, but the CPS has told Newsnight that it only saw a small number of documents seized by British police. Babar Ahmad says the rest of the evidence was sent directly to the US.
So this was the resolution that was...
That allegation has led to questions in Parliament, including questions about the role played by the Metropolitan Police.
I would love to know exactly what happened to the evidence that they collected, how much of that was given to the CPS, how much of it went directly to the United States, why did it go directly to the United States, who asked for that to happen. I think there's a whole grey area here, very, very murky, and we need to get to the bottom of it, which is why I've called for a public inquiry.
The Metropolitan Police say they carried out their investigation strictly in accordance with UK law. We completely reject any suggestion of impropriety. Babar Ahmad is appealing for an 11th hour review of his files. His lawyers have compiled a dossier on the evidence that could be used against him in Britain. They say other men have been prosecuted for similar crimes, including for having material that began life on Exam. So if they charge you with fundraising for terrorism?
I would happily stand trial for anything that the Crown Prosecution Service decided to charge me with, because I wish to clear my name, I wish to get my life back.
But it's good being outside government. Although Babar Ahmad alleges he's been the victim of an abusive process, the US says everything was above board, And cases like these are what the extradition treaty with the UK is designed for.
Here we have an example of transnational terrorism. That, in our minds, continues to go to the top of the list, so to speak. And so the example of having him extradited to the United States to stand trial for what he did as a violation of U.S. law is the rightness of the issue from our side.
The US case goes wider than the websites and terrorist fundraising. Prosecutors say Babar Ahmad was sent classified material from a US sailor on board this battleship. Information, they say, about the ship's movements that allegedly could have been used to mount a terrorist attack. Babar Ahmad denies this. If he's extradited, he'll probably end up before a judge at this court in Connecticut. He wouldn't face the death penalty.
He would have the opportunity to assert all the arguments that any other defendant would get to assert, and he'd be accorded all of the rights, the many, many rights that are guaranteed to criminal defendants under the United States Constitution, which is a very, very generous document to criminal defendants.
If convicted, he faces life in this maximum security prison in Colorado. His lawyers say conditions there are inhumane. This is the core issue that the European Court of Human Rights will rule on next week. If judges say he can't be extradited, the British authorities face a dilemma about what to do with him.
I just try my best to take each day as it comes.
Either way, for Babar Ahmad, the clock is ticking.
I'm fighting for my life and I'm running out of time. In a way, this interview is my last chance to try and convince the authorities here to end my nightmare by putting me on trial in this country.